Started. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of the Troutdale Planning Commission for Wednesday, January 14, 2026. If we could have roll call, please.
Commissioner Glantz.
Present.
Commissioner Minkoff.
Present.
Commissioner Kester.
Here.
Commissioner Prickett. Here. Commissioner Wilcox.
Here.
Commissioner Stephenson.
Here.
Commissioner Allen.
Present. Rounding it off.
All right, at this time, I would like to ask everyone to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and Commissioner Minkoff will be leading us this evening.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is there anyone wishing to speak to the Planning Commission this evening on a non-agenda item? Please unmute yourself. And seeing none. Okay, we will move along. And did everyone receive a copy of the minutes from December 10th?
Yes.
2025. And corrections were, let's start with Commissioner Wilcox.
Okay, just have one correction and one question. The correction is under numeral 1, commissioners and staff present. The T is missing from Commissioner Glantz's name. And the question is at the very bottom of the page, the last paragraph. Upcoming work includes the completion of the 257th Design Standards project. I kind of wonder what that's all about, because as far as I know, there's only one empty lot on that entire street by the, just north of the Shell station on the east side. So it's fully developed as far as I know. So I don't know what the design standards would apply to.
So I can go ahead and answer this question. So we've been working on the Halsey design standards west of 257th. And so those design standards would apply to any redevelopment or new development along those parcels. And then I also know that we had discussed, and we will continue to have this discussion next month in February, if we should include some lots running up a little bit north of 257th to capture that area as well for design standards.
You're talking about Graham Road then?
So, not Graham Road, so this would be, oh, sorry, I shouldn't say north. It's really south.
Okay.
Got my directions mixed up there.
Okay. Commissioner Glantz.
I had a question on item 4. At the end of that, it says, see the attached Oregon Legislative Land Use and Housing Updates. For some reason, is that actually going to be attached? It wasn't attached in our notes, so.
That was the summary memo, and we can definitely attach that to the minutes.
Okay. I don't need to see it. I just wanted to make sure that was the intention.
Any other corrections, questions to the minutes of December 10th? Motion to approve is amended.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Prickett.
I move that we accept the minutes as amended for December 10th, 2025 of the Troutdale Planning Commission.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to accept the minutes as amended for December 10th, 2025. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, opposed? All right, that carried. Excellent. All right. And are we down to Ms. Boxler?
We are.
Okay. Good evening, Ms. Boxler.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Let me pull up my presentation really quick for you. I think I need to share the screen before I make it full screen. So let's, sorry, it's hard to see the ribbon at the top, with this in the way. There we go. Okay, thank you for having me tonight. I'm here to give an update on where we're at with the downtown Troutdale parking management plan. As you are all probably aware, we have been working on this for a while now, and we're at the very tail end of it and ready to just wrap up a final little piece, and then we will have that final document to have reviewed and accepted by council. So I'm here to give an overview of what it covers and sort of talk about the different management steps that have been identified. So the parking management plan intends to give Troutdale a clear roadmap to manage growth while preserving downtown small town character. And it prioritizes efficient use of our existing resources, better communication, and improved multimodal options so that we can meet those current and future parking needs without overbuilding parking that is then underutilized. The parking management plan shifts us away from a reactive to a proactive approach with the parking management while balancing convenience, safety, sustainability, and economic vitality. And the implementation will require collaboration across our various departments and partner agencies. But the outcome is a more accessible, vibrant, and welcoming Troutdale for residents, businesses, and visitors alike. We had a large team of people helping us through this process, and we've kept various different committees and commissions aware of and involved in the project along the way. So we've got our project management team, which includes myself and Erica, and then our consultants from Kittleson and Associates, and then a technical advisory committee that is made up of a variety of different people, both within the community and experts in this field, and also some of our partner agencies. The purpose is really to identify the parking policies and strategies that will improve the visitor experience and livability in downtown, as well as Glen Otto Community Park. Glen Otto Community Park is not necessarily in what we might all describe as downtown Troutdale, but it is just around the corner. And we all know that Glen Otto does have parking challenges, and demand often exceeds the supply that is there. So we wanted to document that in this, just in case there's spillover and other implications that could, happen between the two areas. It's also to provide an assessment of our parking facilities within the downtown and examine the current usage patterns, the reoccurring issues that are faced by residents and visitors, and the opportunities for improvement. And it also provides an outline on practical solutions and phased implementation strategies that can help enhance the visitor experience and improve that livability for the residents here in Troutdale. So our study area was really the lower level parking to 3rd Street about. And we have a number of different off-street parking lots that are identified in this light purple color, as well as the on-street parking on historic Columbia River Highway, on 2nd on Kendall, Buxton, let's see if I'll get them all, Dora, Harlow, Kibling, and 2nd Street. So these are the full list of the lots, and then of course we've also got Glen Otto Park down here off to the side. For our parking inventory for on-street, on-street parking is available on both sides of most streets within our downtown, with the exception of where driveways interact with the streets. 2nd Street does not have many driveways, but some of the other side streets do have a number of driveways that impact that. And approximately a third of all on-street parking stalls have time limits already identified, such as the 2-hour parking on historic Columbia River Highway and the 4-hour parking on Dora and Harlow. Approximately 2/3 of the stalls do not have time limits, and on-street parking includes some ADA stalls, and we don't currently have any loading zones. So there's those 5 specialty use parking stalls, 21 general use parking stalls, for a total of 276 on-street parking spaces. Off-street parking is available in several public and private service lots around the downtown, and most of these stalls do not have a time limit, with the exception of overnight parking not being allowed in the city lots unless a permit is acquired from the city. Off-street parking includes ADA stalls, EV charging, and reserved parking spaces. We have 51 specialty use parking stalls, 344 general use parking stalls, and for a total of 395 off-street parking stalls. I'll also add that I can't see anyone right now because I'm in the presenter mode. So if someone does have a pressing question, be sure to chime in because I'm going to keep going if you don't. So we collected the parking survey data on a Thursday and a Saturday in July. And one of the things I want to stress is that July is the busiest month in terms of visitation to Troutdale. And so we see the largest amount of stress and demand on our parking resources and our parking spaces in the month of July. So we chose this date because we knew it would be the most heavily impacted days. So this is not, the average, Thursday or Saturday in Troutdale, but it is the peak Thursday and Saturday in Troutdale. We were really looking at the occupancy, the duration of the stay, and the turnover. This is the little diagram showing Thursday at 12 o'clock p.m. So you can see the on-street parking occupancy, the off-street parking occupancy, and where the most amount of supply is not available because the demand is so high. So one of the things that I like to point out on this is that Thursday is a business day, and we have a lot of service-based businesses. Many employees of our businesses like to park in the north parking lot in downtown, which is behind those downtown businesses, which you can see right here in this longer line. And as you can see, it is at 85 to 100% capacity. We're also seeing a lot of usage at the Mayor Square parking lot, which is another parking lot that is very commonly used by employees and customers. But this is how the Thursday weekday looks, and Glen Auto Park is at capacity on that day as well. And then on Saturday at 1 p.m., it looks a little bit different. You can see that Mayor Square parking lot and Glen Auto parking lot are both full, but the north parking lot behind those buildings does not have as much demand for those spaces. And I do believe that that's due to a number of those service-based businesses not being open on the weekends. So those employees aren't parking in those spaces, freeing them up for the customers of the businesses that are still there on the weekends. For the duration of stay, the average duration varies a lot. However, it tends to be over 3 hours in most of the off-street lots, with the exception of Mayor Square parking lot, the Troutdale House lot, Old City Hall parking lot, and Glen Auto Community parking lot. The average duration of stay also varies by street. However, it tends to be less than 2 hours in the 2-hour stalls on the historic highway and less than 4 hours in the 4-hour stalls on Dora and Harlow, and more than 3-hour stalls for those without the time limits, which means that the majority of people are following those posted duration limits, but if not everyone is, and the plan does go into detail about the rate in which people are violating those. So if you're curious about, the frequency with which they saw that during the observation period, that is in the plan. Turnover for on-street facilities varies by street and by stall type, however, tends to be lower than expected. So again, pointing to, people following those hour time limits. And turnover for off-street facilities varies by lot. However, it tends to be less than 2 vehicles per stall, excluding the Mayor Square lot, which suggests that people that park off-street tend to stay longer, and people that park on-street tend to be coming and going more quickly, which is exactly what we want to see in those and how we set those up. So our key challenges.
Oh, Marley.
Oh, yep. Yes.
Could you back up to the previous slide? I'm reading tends to be lower than expected, or you're saying turnover tends to be lower than expected in the 2 hour and 4 hour stalls.
Um,
Lower than expected. I'm kind of reading that as they're exceeding the limits because there's less turnover. If there's less turnover, they're staying longer.
Hold up. Let me. I would have to call. Do you have? Do you remember what this one is about specifically? If we worded that one wrong, or if that was just a phrasing that was um, maybe not correct.
I don't know. I would have to get back and take a look at that last technical memo that we had in regards to the turnover and spillage in the downtown parking area.
What I believe they were saying is that the average turnover violations was lower than they expected. I think that there's a word missing in there than how it's written. I'm not exactly positive on that, but I do believe that that is what it was saying, because we did have a number of conversations about how, compared to some of the other cities they've seen, usually they see more rates of violation, and this was lower in our city than what they were expecting. So I think what they meant is our consultants wrote this PowerPoint. So I think what they meant to say was the violations were lower than they were expecting. So, but we can check in on that and clarify that.
Okay,
let you know.
thanks. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So the key challenges that we have with parking in downtown Troutdale are the growing parking demand, an unbalanced parking demand, spillover, special events, duration of stay, loading and unloading, safety, user and visitor information, limited transportation options. When it says Sandy River Shuttle, it means lack of Sandy River Shuttle, and then the transportation planning rule. So the plan is broken into a number of different policies and strategies, and they're grouped by a larger category. So the first category is, sorry, I'm hoping that my screen will, oops. I'm trying to make this screen get smaller so I can actually see what it says, but it's not doing it. The first one is the administration. So these strategies are some easy things that we can do right off the bat that ensure proper implementation, management, and monitoring of our city's parking program. This establishes a framework for day-to-day operations, stakeholder and community engagement, alignment with the broader economic development and livability goals, and provides adaptability as conditions change. So this is more in the administration of the actual parking program itself and monitoring for the future. And these strategies include a parking manager, parking regulation advisory committee. Sorry, I don't know why I tripped over that word. Parking management district, and outreach communications plan around how to park in Troutdale. The next one is a user and visitor information. I feel like I'm going to read the strategies first, and then I'll read those bullet points above it, because that explains what they're about. So these strategies are all near-term strategies. They are a signage plan for signing and pavement markings, a wayfinding signage plan and implementation, parking maps, how to park resources, and a parking ambassador. And what this does is provide it improves how residents and visitors receive information about parking. So it uses clear signage, maps, and communication tools to show where parking is located, how you can use it, what are the time limits, what are the fees, what are the rules, and it reduce that confusion and perceived shortage or perceived belief around shortages. It also promotes awareness of alternative modes such as walking, biking, and transit, and enhances the overall visitor experience through consistent messaging and branding. One of the things I want to point out on this is that wayfinding signage plan is something that came up repeatedly from the public involvement, how many people felt that we needed better wayfinding within our downtown because they didn't know where they were going, whether that was for parking or for other resources. And we don't have a lot of wayfinding in our downtown. So that is something that we are really hoping to improve sooner rather than later. If you think about, we're all very used to driving in Troutdale and knowing where the parking lots are, but I had an experience at the visitor center on a first Friday where we had someone visiting us from Germany, actually, and we were telling them about the first Friday event that was going to be happening later that day, and they asked where to park, and we were explaining different areas that they could park, and we said Mayor Square parking lot. And they said, "What's Mayor Square parking lot?" And it was in that moment that we realized there is no sign for Mayor Square parking lot. So while we all know that name, the visitors to our area don't know that that's what it's called and aren't aware of how to get to that parking lot. So this is an area where the wayfinding signage can help really guide people to some of the lesser used parking spaces. The next policy and strategy is around transportation demand management. And this has strategies in the near, mid, and long term. So in the near term, we're looking at improving the bicycle and pedestrian facilities at historic Columbia River Highway, 2nd Street, and Depot City Park, and implementing the pilot of the Sandy River shuttle service, which will be happening this summer. And then midterm, which is 5 to 10 years, is improve the facilities at historic Columbia River Highway, 257th and 2nd Street, improve transit facilities, hopefully continue the Sandy River shuttle beyond the pilot and have flexible commute benefits. And then long term, we have improving the bike ped and transit facilities at Depot City Park, Sandy River Trail, and the Confluence. The next one is parking management. And I think that I forgot to mention on the transportation demand management, what this does is encourage active and shared modes of travel to reduce parking demand and support employees and residents in choosing alternatives to driving alone while integrating the bicycle and pedestrian and transit improvements along with the parking policy to support and promote those sustainability and health and mobility goals. So the next category is parking management. And this focuses on making the existing parking supply work more efficiently before we go to building more. The tools include time limits and permits, shared parking, pay to park programs, loading and unloading zones. And then this helps balance supply and demand, reduce congestion, and maintain accessibility. And it also helps us adapt to changing use patterns as downtown grows. And as we see businesses come and go and the visitation that they receive at those businesses change. So these strategies in the near term include time limit restrictions for on-street facilities where they don't already exist, area parking permit programs, pay to park program at Glen Auto Community Park, which was implemented this past summer and has been successful, but there's maybe some modifications that we can make to that, to make it work a little bit more efficiently. And then loading zones and a review of the ADA stalls. In the midterm, we have shared parking agreements at the CCB in Troutdale Police Facility. And hopefully we could also have some conversations with some private parking lot owners about shared use agreements in those locations as well. And then in long term, we have pay to park programs for the North Downtown lot, Mayor Square lot, Historic Highway, Southeast Door, at basically all the streets, and that's in the 10 to 20 year timeline. Next, we have parking enforcement, which ensures that all other parking strategies are effective. And enforcement should be frequent. That should say fair, not fire, and friendly. Focus on education and not punishment. It encourages compliance and turnover while maintaining a positive visitor experience and consistency and credibility across the parking system. So within the near term, it is recommended to remain compliant. That should say, complaint. I almost said compliant. Remain complaint driven. Midterm is building on that consistency, and then long term is evolving to support implementation of a paid parking system. One of the things that the plan does discuss a lot is how parking enforcement for many communities is not feasible at the scale that you would desire to implement it at unless you have a paid parking system, because the paid parking system helps pay for the necessary staff and equipment to do parking enforcement. So it's something that right now in the city is complaint driven, and they're recommending keeping it complaint driven until such time as we're able to build out that infrastructure in that system more. The next one is create new parking supply. Um, this one is considered only after all other management tools are in place and addresses long-term needs when demand consistently exceeds 85% capacity. It may include reconfiguring existing lots, adding remote or shared lots, installing EV charging stations, constructing new facilities, and recognizing the high cost and land use impacts of new parking construction. We have strategies in the near, mid, and long term, and near term has some remote parking suggestions around the urban renewal area and reconfiguring of some off-street parking facilities at Glen Otto Community Park. Midterm is increasing on-street parking supply, and long-term is creating EV charging stations at Glen Otto, constructing new parking facilities at the confluence, and creating motorcycle or compact vehicle parking spaces in places where there's not enough room for a full parking space, but we'd still like to maximize the available parking, and so getting creative with some of those underutilized areas. This section, one of the things that we are asking the consultants to include a little bit more on, which is why we don't have the final document ready for you all tonight, is information on how to sustainably fund new parking. One of the challenges about building new parking is, especially in Troutdale, is that we do not have much land available, if any, to create large surface parking lots. And surface parking takes up a large amount of space for a limited number of parking spaces. So one of the things we might have to look at in the future is, should a public surface lot be converted into a structured lot, and how would that work financially for the city? And some strategies that there are some funding mechanisms that could be considered and evaluated and determined which would be best for the community. So they're going to go into a little bit more detail about what those options are, so that we all understand, what that would take to get us there, and can be planning more for the future, since that is in the long-term category. Moving.
Marley,
Mhm.
under new parking supply, is there any discussion or consideration with the outlet mall? Because that's a really underutilized parking lot they've got there. And there are hundreds of spaces available there that aren't being used.
It does not discuss that, and that is specifically because the Columbia Gorge outlets are a private shopping center, and the parking there is privately owned. It is, potentially we could do one of those shared use agreements that I had mentioned before with them, but because they're not public parking, this plan doesn't give specific recommendations for those spaces. But in the future, we could have conversations with them about the shared use. That said, with the Sandy River Shuttle pilot, the operator of that is Sasquatch Shuttle, which has a storefront in the outlet mall. So because of that, they are able to utilize those parking spaces for the Sandy River Shuttle. So we're hopeful that people will park at the outlet mall and hop on the shuttle to go visit Dabney or Glen Otto Park, or float the river between the two parks, and maybe that will reduce some of the congestion and strain on both Glen Otto Park and Dabney State Park.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. So moving forward, funding mechanisms In the short term, many strategies will be funded by the city's general fund, but there are also a few different funding mechanisms that could be discussed and deployed in the long term, which is sort of what I was just talking about. And we have measures in there for continued monitoring, measuring, and evaluating. That was something that we heard from people, is that there's new businesses that come and go. How do we measure those parking impacts? So there's some language in there on that as well. And if you have any questions or want to find out more information about the downtown parking study, here's the link, and there is my email. And if you have any questions, you can also ask them now.
Can we get that link sent to us since I can't exactly type all that in right now? Um, and then, yeah, I do have some questions. In some of the earlier pages, there was comments about hiring a parking manager. And then I see towards the end, we're talking about like general fund stuff. Shouldn't we add in under some of the challenges, budgets? I mean, what happens if we don't have the money to fund some of this?
Yeah, that's
Like zero-based budgeting or something as a challenge.
yes, that is a great recommendation. We can go and back and look and see if that is one of the challenges that's identified. Since this is key challenges, it might still be in there, but I can double check to see if budgeting is in there. So that's a great suggestion. Thank you.
And then just a general comment, I saw mentioned too about like a parking committee and some of this other stuff. I worry that we have enough people to, be able to really dive in and work on the existing committees, and adding even more committees
Mm-hmm.
seems like more work and less gain.
Yes, so
So,
that was something that staff addressed with the consultants as well, for the exact same reasoning. And the recommendation in the plan is actually for one of the existing committees to serve in that role. So we have the Town Center Advisory Board, and that was who we thought most closely aligned with downtown parking challenges and having that. So that it isn't clear on the PowerPoint, but it is intended to be an existing committee and not a new committee.
that was it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do I need to unmute or it can pick up?
It can pick up.
Generally, thank you.
I can hear you.
I have a few questions and a comment. What is the penalty for violations right now, for parking violations? You know?
I do not know off the top of my head, no.
Okay. So traffic citation, yeah, but it's not being enforced currently, so I just was curious. Nobody's going through and marking tires for the 2 hour or the 4 hour or 3 hour.
No, we don't have any. Yes, that's correct. We don't have staff for that.
Staff. Do you know how many per time limit spaces there are in all of these areas per day? And what I mean is, if a street space has a 4 hour time limit, then that's 6 spaces available in that spot. 6 times 4 is 24. So because it's a 4 hour, and in a 2 hour, it would be, that's essentially 12 spaces. So what I'm thinking is somebody ought to be adding that all up and comparing that to what is the demand, the current demand for per time limit spaces throughout Troutdale. What I think about is, I kind of equate this to full-time equivalent when they talk about full-time employees. If you take 2 20-hour people, the government considers that one full-time employee for various benefits and so on. What I'm not seeing in here, what I'm getting at is what I'm not seeing is you've got some study on what is currently happening. You mentioned the problem with future demand that is growing. Troutdale, but what I'm not seeing is this is how many spaces we have. These are how many vehicles, how many spaces we need, forget vehicle. These are how many spaces we need, and therefore we need to provide X number of additional spaces somehow. And I'm not seeing that in this plan.
So that is in the final document. And I believe over the 20-year planning horizon for redevelopment and new development in downtown. And Marley, I don't have the technical memo in front of me tonight, I apologize. Over the 20-year horizon, I believe we were short 60 spaces.
60 spaces over the next 20 years.
Correct.
So then all of this noise about there isn't enough parking in downtown is just noise. Doesn't really exist.
Well, I think it does exist.
So then we are short. In other words, we're short today, not short 60 spaces over 20 years.
There's a little caveat, I think, about that. And, it depends on the time of day.
Right. Well, where are those statistics?
Yeah.
Also.
Are they in a technical memo? Time
Yes.
of day,
Yep.
how many spaces we have, how many spaces are needed. You do have that.
Yes, we do
Right.
have that
Yeah.
information.
Haven't been presented.
But it's also a moving target, business A today needs 3 spaces,
Yeah.
and then they go out, somebody comes in and they need 20.
Right, and the other thing that I think this information makes very clear to me, is that those total numbers of available parking spaces are not used efficiently. So a lot of the wayfinding and signage and maps that have been proposed will go, I think, a long way towards helping the perception that the parking situation downtown is as bad as it is. Now, for some people, it's not going to do a darn good a thing, because if they can't park immediately in front of or within a half a block of the place they're trying to get to, there's not enough parking, and there's not a whole lot we can do about that. But I think the lesson that I'm taking away from this is the near-term solution is all about efficiently using the parking that we've got. And because that's kind of the low-hanging fruit.
And it's almost the only fruit.
Yeah, it's almost the only fruit. There's no land. There's no place to build more parking.
Does that,
That's it. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
I got one thing.
Okay, go ahead.
Commissioner.
So I like where Commissioner Meekhoff was going with that, except for I would cut it back to business hours, right, instead of the 24 hours. And I think Adrian has a good point as well. How efficiently are we using it as a near term? From personal experience, and I don't know how many people going downtown to do business are employed, but for those of us that are still working, when I go there to eat lunch, I come to Troutdale to eat lunch. What I run into is I can't find parking. So I have about a half an hour. I can't find parking. I drive around and I give up and I go somewhere else, right? And after about 3 times of that happening, then I seem to give up for a while. Now, later in the day or earlier in the morning when I typically would go to the dentist, I can usually find a spot. And I'm usually okay, right? But I certainly wouldn't be paying for parking to eat lunch because it's just too much of a percentage of the cost of my meal. I would go somewhere where I don't have to pay. So that would eliminate me from coming to Troutdale. And I can't help but wonder how many of the food businesses we lose are because they couldn't bring in enough business to stay viable. Because it happens, we lose businesses. And that might be a turnover problem.
And is those statistics part of the study?
The turnover rates or?
Well, when he
Businesses
says
go
I
out.
can't park at lunchtime, then is that part of the statistics that say at that time of the day, we need more parking spaces?
And
You're probably gonna be PM peak and then noon, and then work backwards from there.
Yeah, and if I can really quick, so I'm just showing you a snapshot of what the overall memo says, but if we go back to I have pulled up on the screen the parking survey from Thursday at 12 p.m., which is exactly, the sort of time that you all are discussing right now. And you can see which of the lots are considered at or exceeding capacity, 85% to 100%. So any of those dark orange colors are the lots that are at or exceeding capacity. And you can see that the on-street parking is still generally available to some extent, not of course, those most popular spaces between Historic Columbia River Highway and Second. But this is showing you where the most challenge is during that time of day.
I need to follow up with that. So according to this, you should find space.
I don't.
Right. So I think that there's a disconnect between what I'm seeing here on this chart and what the public is actually experiencing.
Yeah, and I wanted to also make one more point and then my comment, and then I think I'm done. During my half an hour for lunch, I'm certainly not going to be biking, taking transit, walking. I just don't have that kind of time. Now, when I look at this, is some of that parking too far away that I'm not going to be comfortable? I don't know, because I don't think that I actually tried the community center. I didn't see anything in the other yellow spaces during the times that I was looking. So it could just be a timing thing, because I typically am going to come somewhere between 11 and 12. And this is looking at 12. Maybe people go back to work. I don't know. But that gets down to how many people are actually doing business in Troutdale that are unemployed that don't have to worry about time like the rest of us do.
Does it also include, now we have Home Forward moving in, which is gonna eat up some off-street, or on-street parking? And it could, because I don't see a two-bedroom apartment, two people are gonna have two cars, and it's not gonna be enough parking. So they're gonna find a place to park, or they have to walk or whatever. So that's gonna increase, I think it's gonna increase the need for more parking, because people, they're gonna park right out here where there are places to park for people to go to businesses. And that's gonna eliminate those parking spaces. Because they're not gonna be, it's not gonna be like a 2-hour parking, it's gonna be overnight, because they're a resident at the apartments right here.
And that's something we'll have to monitor over time. And I think this plan, states we really have to monitor parking over time to figure out what's going to be efficient for folks. How do we make it more efficient over time?
If I could.
Yep, no.
Question for you guys is, what is the current vacancy rate in downtown, like on Historic Columbia River Highway?
I don't know the current vacancy rate off of the top of my head. It changes as quickly as the businesses go out. Some of them come right back in. So
You estimate, I don't know, 15, 18, 20% probably. somewhere in that range.
Yes, I mean, I would say probably closer to the 15 or
Okay.
less.
Okay, I think that's something that needs to be roughly considered in this because, you know, a full would be considered a 5% vacancy. And so theoretically, if we were at 5%, we'd be kind of at max. And the 15 means the capacity could increase, which could kind of change your whole parking dynamic. The other thing, including the police facility, that's a timed lot. It's not really open. I don't think that should be included in the mix. Because
It's open for use,
Not during the day.
right? It's not open for use during business hours.
So, that one makes me a little nervous, and with us charging for Glen Auto, that makes me a little nervous, kind of including that as an open lot as well. Those two, because I think those are kind of dynamic things that have happened that would change those.
Plus, I would say, nobody's parking at Glen Auto Park and walking back up to downtown.
There are some.
They do.
They do.
Many?
Enough,
No.
especially during events.
Events,
Fair enough.
yes, yeah. So Chair Stephenson, I think you bring up a very good point. Because as we're trying to measure how many businesses are suffering because people can't park or do enough turns at the business, vacancy rates are going to be an indicator that we have an issue.
Well,
Right.
and I'll just say this, if you don't have a parking problem, you have a bigger problem than you could ever imagine because you don't have any customers.
Right.
So it's a fine line between a parking problem being a good thing and a parking problem being a bad thing. It's a very fine line. And sometimes it gets a little blurry. But like, you have a lot of things that flex, like good coffee in the morning. It's nothing for them to tie up 10 spots in downtown, which is probably more than their allocation. And then I also look at places like Columbia Gorge Salon. Not only do you have the employees, but they have like 12 different stations in there. And when they're full, a lot of parking spots. But then a lot of those people are part-time. So, you know, that situation is in flux too. So it's just, you're working with the numbers, but you can't just take the number and say, this is what it is, and this is always what it's going to be, because it's different on Tuesday than it is on Wednesday.
I think you made a good point in the sense that Glen Auto, that's a good indicator of how that business is doing. And with the exception of events, I'm certainly not going to park there to go up to downtown. I don't have that kind of time. And so they are two separate areas, really.
But when you have, and I will say this, personally, I agree wholeheartedly with the statement that it is not being managed effectively. And I've said that many times before. I do feel that there's some things we could do as a community, as business owners and as leaders to help that be more efficient than what it is today. But also too with that is when you have restaurants and shops and things of that nature, and you have a lot of activity, that tends to bring more activity. And if you don't have that activity, additional activity doesn't come.
Right.
So in other words, if there's not a bunch of people around, nobody wants to go there because it's not happening.
That's a good
And
point.
like if you're going to eat, quite often, it'll sound weird too, but they go somewhere to eat and then they figure out where they're gonna eat when they get there.
I might even hit a store, right, if I see something.
Right.
Or I see something, I don't have time for the store, so I come back to the store later.
And I'm sorry, Commissioner Kester, that was a bit of a rant. I'm
No,
sorry.
that's
Me too,
fine.
I'm sorry.
So my primary concern with this is, and I guess this is a question, I guess partially a question to see if this was addressed. We know that there are some streets near downtown where when on-street parking is heavily utilized, traffic flow becomes a real problem. Second Street between Buxton and Kendall frequently turns into a one-way street or one lane street. When York Terrace is fully populated, I'm fully expecting 4th Street to be exactly the same way.
Good point.
And so personally, I think it is inevitable that we're actually going, just because of traffic mobility, the ability to move cars, that we're going to have to take some of these on-street parking spots out of circulation and make like 2nd Street be on-street parking only on one side, 4th Street only on one side. Personally, I don't think there should be anybody parking on Buxton north of 2nd Street, especially when they're parking giant trucks on the road that make it impossible to make 2 cars go safely next to each other. So there are on-street parking spots that we're inevitably, I think, going to have to take out of circulation if that's been figured in the long-term plan.
What he's saying is a very good point. I'll tell you why. Because even if that other side of the road is available, if there's cars on one side, I'm not parking on the other side. It just chokes it off too much. So we count it as parking, but is it really? I think that's the point that's being made.
Commissioner Mayhew?
I thought I was paying close attention.
You are.
If you would remind me, what I see is there's 3 phases. You talk about a short term, in the near term and in the long term. I think we have an immediate stage as well. I think there's an immediate problem. So the reason I started off by saying I think I was paying attention, but I didn't hear what you're intending to do immediately.
I think that's going to be a question for our decision makers.
Okay?
We do have some options, in the study, short term. Short term could be
Okay,
immediate,
right.
some things that they could, enact right away, such as, better maps and better wayfinding for parking signage. That could be an immediate first step.
Okay. Good, thank you.
I agree with you about parking on one side of the street, because I've been stuck or been parked on both sides, and I'm in the middle going down and another car's coming the other way. And they want you to back up. Well, I could back up, but I don't know how many cars I'll take out. Trying to back up. Because it's a fine line between, because some of those cars are, small, but then there are those trucks with the wide double axle, or a semi truck, or a box truck.
I can't believe I'm about to say this because I hate them, but would we consider making more streets one way and adding similar parking to what we did on Dora and the other one?
It's certainly an option.
If I can really quick, the 2nd Street is the detour route whenever we have city events. So, that could be challenging for managing that. And, it's not something that's included in this study. It's not to say that we couldn't look at that. But I do think that it poses other challenges and creates other things that we would have to deal with. And the net benefit might not be large enough to justify doing that. And that's often what happens when we look at parking studies and when we start going through these different tools that we could try to implement, evaluating if we could, reconfigure a lot. And if you're only gaining one or two parking spaces, you have to weigh, is that really worth the thousands of dollars it could take to implement that strategy for one or two more parking spaces? So it's just one of those benefit and cost things that we have to weigh as they come up. But that isn't something that is included in the study as it currently is.
It's a good point. We need to think about it, right? I think that's a good
Mm-hmm.
point. But I do believe that we put up the no parking signs during events.
Yes, we do have no parking signs on Second Street during events, but the road traffic pattern being one way we would have to put out signs directing traffic to ignore the traffic or the all the signs telling them that it's a one way. So it gets confusing for users, and it could end up being more challenging than it's worth to implement, if that makes sense.
The second Kendall being the primary ingress and egress for home forward, that's pretty much turns that into an impossibility.
Right.
Commissioner.
Thank you. Does the shuttle that departs from the outlet mall that goes to the two parks, does it make stops along Old Columbia River Highway?
It will have a stop at the visitor center, which is located in Depot Park on this map. It will have flag stops there, so if someone is waiting at the stop to be picked up, they can be picked up there, or if someone indicates on the bus that they would like to stop there, they can be dropped off there.
Not currently, but it will happen.
It doesn't exist now.
It doesn't exist currently, so yes, it will happen.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Wilcox?
Let's see. I had one question. I don't remember the exact number, but are the new public spaces on the north side of Second Street included in the inventory?
On
They were, those were counted because we had the plans for that site.
I think the number was 14, if it sticks in my head, that we were getting from the home forward development.
That's something we would have to double check though, just to be certain on, because I know that we gave the plans to them. I think that the number of those parking spaces is included in the future prediction section. That is what Commissioner Minkoff was talking about earlier. I believe that those are in there, but they obviously weren't counted in the existing parking survey because they do not exist currently, but accommodated for in the future.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Thank you.
If I can make one final point, just to put a thought quickly in your minds around all of this. I know that I heard Commissioner Allen say that he would not pay for parking if he came down here, and lots were charged. And I think that one of the reasons that we're asking the consultants to add to the section about building new parking, more information about how we fund these sort of things, because I think one of the things that we have to consider is, do you want to, parking has to be paid for regardless. If we want to construct new parking, we have to pay for new parking. And it's a question of, do you want to pay for parking up front and make that ask to the citizens of Troutdale, or do you want to pay for that parking through the use of the parking, where anyone who uses that parking is paying for that, whether they're a resident or not a resident. And I think that there's lots of people who obviously don't like paying for parking. I don't like paying for parking. I don't think anyone likes paying for parking. But what you all have to consider as you think about the future of parking is this something that you want the financial burden to be completely on the citizens of Troutdale, or do you want to share some of the cost of that with visitors and users of the parking who might not be from the city of Troutdale? And I got a parking ticket in Ashland earlier this year, and it changed some of my thinking about this and had an impact on me. So I say all of this because in their town, I wish that I could have paid for parking. And you don't hear people say that very often, but they had free parking and they enforced their free parking. And getting a $40 ticket was a lot more of a bummer than just having paid. Like, I would have preferred to have paid for parking and been able to re-up my parking and not have gotten a ticket. And of course, the ticket isn't the end of the world, but it does have, an impact on your feelings towards things when you leave. And that was one of those things that I didn't think that I would necessarily think that way. But it also got my wheels thinking about how we don't have sales tax in Oregon. And there's not a lot of ways for us to, there's people who come into the town and who use the town and who use the services. And unless they're staying in a hotel, there's not a lot of way that we potentially get funding out of that to help support the resources that they're using here in the city. And so I've sort of started to think about it as like, this is helping pay for the infrastructure that I'm using in a community. So if I'm visiting a community, I now think at least that, if I have to pay for parking, at least it's helping support that infrastructure in that community and that I'm utilizing. So that's just a little a side story of something that happened to me and how it sort of reframed my thinking. So just something for you all to consider when you're thinking about how you will construct new parking in the future, if that is something you want to do.
I guess I would like to see some type of a regional effort when it comes to parking, especially if you're going to run shuttles and things of that nature out of here. I would like to see ODOT pitch in. I'd like to see Metro pitch in. I'd like to see some of those agencies pitch in towards some type of regional parking facility. So not just the citizens, but statewide.
Two things. So, not sure if that was captured. I wouldn't pay for parking for lunch. There's too many other options, right? And the meal's not that much.
We got it.
So it's a percentage. But going to the dentist, yeah, I would probably pay for parking because the bill's a lot higher, right? So there's that one. And let's see, what was the second one? I know I had a second, but I'll come back to it. Oh, I know it. So would we consider, is 2 hours too much? Do we reduce that to an hour or an hour and a half in some places? Get the more turnover? How long do people spend parking if they're eating, right? Shopping is going to be more, but if a mix of longer periods and shorter periods.
I think that the mix is exactly the key to how to manage this. Having a mix of different time limits is how you ensure that there is parking to meet different needs and uses in the downtown. People who are going to restaurants for a sit-down meal, the 2 hours is great for them. It allows them enough time to get the meal, to walk to their parking, to walk to their car, to walk to the restaurant, those sort of things. Usually they can be done within that 2 hour period, which is what we saw in the study. And shopping, as you said, yes, is longer. But I think having the mix of options is very key. a point of the Ashland story that I didn't say was that all of their parking was 2 hour parking. Like I could not find 4 hour parking, and I spent 2 hours and 45 minutes there. So, I think that having a mix and then also communicating where that parking is to your visitors is important. Because, like I said before, we might know where all the best parking spaces are. P.S. There's always parking behind the visitor center. So if you can't find a space, you can always head there. Um, but the visitors don't always know where that parking is if we're not communicating with them and telling them how to use it. So a mix is key for sure.
I go do business in Vancouver, and some of the big, we do business there, and they have on-street parking, but you pay for it, and it's 2 hours. So most of the time we get our business done within that 2 hours. So then the next person comes in and pays for their 2 hours, or an hour, or whatever you wanna pay for. But it's in a specific thing that you punch in and you say you're there and this is how long you're gonna be there. And if that time runs out, you don't, you get a ticket every time. And that may be an option where it's, so they have an option, so if they have to stay longer, they can pay the next hour or two, whichever because you can pay ahead and say
Right.
you're gonna be there for 3 hours.
Yep.
And if you're not, then you leave and the next person.
Yep.
So metered might be an easier way to control it too as well.
You might want to limit the maximum time for the meter. Just because you might even have a business owner who just sits out on the street taking up a parking spot for the entire business hours, right?
All right. Thank you, Marley.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marley.
Oh, yes, thank you. Still thinking.
Staff communications, yes.
You're up.
Thank you. So I want to get back to our conversation that we had at our last commission meeting in December when we went through all the legislative updates from 2025. I know that there were some great questions from the commissioners at that meeting, and I started to look into those questions to bring answers back. Today, the short session down in Salem is going to be starting, and there is some new draft housing legislation, and that new housing legislation just might change things again. And so I want to wait until after the short session to bring back those answers to the commission. So I just want to let you know that I haven't forgot that list of questions. I have them. I plan on bringing a briefing back to all of you, but things might change, and I just want to, I don't want to get answers and then have them change and then get new answers. It's, yeah.
Makes sense.
Let's see here. Our next planning commission meeting is scheduled for February 11th. We have one public hearing tentatively scheduled, and that is for the Crunch Fitness Gym moving into the Cherry Park Plaza up there.
Where Move was supposed to be.
Correct.
Moved, yeah.
And then we'll have a work session on the Halsey Design Standards project as well.
Okay. Anything else?
That's it for now.
Okay. Commissioner Allen?
I think I'm good.
Commissioner Kester?
good discussion. I appreciate the updates on the parking study. I will say that I personally take advantage of the EV parking spots in Mayor's Square as often as I can. Even though I am ashamed to say I only live 2 blocks off of downtown. But walking will be a little easier once I get my shortcut back. I also put in my shameless plug for my monthly Parks and Rec program. Our game day next iteration is on February 10th, I think. Anyway, it's in the guide. It's on the Parks and Rec events page on Facebook. Everybody's welcome.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. All right. Commissioner Glantz.
Nothing special other than I'll miss you guys next month.
Oh, that's right.
Under the palm tree, yeah.
Oh, shucks.
Okay. Commissioner Wilcox?
Okay, can you all hear me okay?
Mhm.
Yes.
Oh, good. I thought about this last meeting and then I worked on it some more in the past month. This could be framed as a rhetorical question, but I'm going to frame it as more of an observation so that nobody feels compelled to answer the question. There was a business opened recently downtown on a historic highway that serves alcohol on site. And my observation is that there's at least a half a dozen or more businesses that serve alcohol on site within a block or two of Mayor's Square. But you can't buy marijuana for off-site use within 1,000 feet of Mayor's Square. That seems kind of silly to me. So just wanted to make that statement. Thanks. That's all I have.
All right.
I don't have much to add, other than thank you all. Nice to be here. I was sick last month. Good to be healthy. Thank you.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Nice.
Yeah, that's having you back.
Thank you.
Any news on re-signing some local streets?
That the Parks Committee is going to discuss that at their next meeting to see whether or not they would like to move forward with that recommendation.
And then that goes to CAC.
If they decide to
Yeah,
move
if
it
they
forward.
decide.
Or if it goes to CAC?
Which,
Some neighbors I live on Indian John
yeah, okay.
and Indian Mary and Indian John, the Indian John Place and Indian John
I
Avenue.
know there's 4 streets.
Okay, that's right. You reminded me what the question was.
My neighbors are asking. Because they're worried that they're gonna have to change everything.
So remind me, what is the question?
The question is are they gonna change the street name from Indian John to something else?
Because it's not politically correct.
And
Okay.
it was named, it's a historical name from what I understand, that's why they named it that.
Oh, yeah, from our history, yeah.
Yeah, so, and nobody's complained,
I don't even think Indian John complained about it.
no. Or Indian Mary.
Is Native American John too long?
Oh, come on.
He would not have recognized that.
No. It will prompt some discussion, that's certain.
So I think if Parks decides they want to float this ahead, then it goes to CAC.
Yeah, Parks to CAC, HLC probably will want to weigh in.
Yeah, we've renamed streets in the past, and we got a lot of backlash from
Of course.
Yeah.
Well,
People
one,
have to change
Council's
things.
got quite a
Right.
discard
One-
issue.
Yeah, they do.
Some of that.
the reason is that you have to change everything that you have delivered to your house.
Oh, yeah.
Then you also,
Every
when you
business you
sell
do
your
business with.
property, you have to have, the title company has to search the old and new address.
Oh, no wonder they fried us last time.
Because,
Yeah.
and title
I forget
companies
exactly
charge
which
you
one it was,
for
but
that.
we got a lot back.
So let's hold a vote somewhere and just say we're not gonna rewrite history in Troutdale.
It will, there will be discussion to be had,
Yeah.
I'm sure.
All right.
But other than that, Happy New Year, everyone. Thank you. Thank you for all that you're doing, the parking study, everything. I mean, it takes a lot. And the commission for even, showing up.
All right, I'd just like to thank everyone for being here. Thank you, staff, for putting everything together. And we will see you all next month. And with that, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you all very much. We will see you February 11th.